All right. What's going on, everybody? As you can see, I'm out in my nature walk, and I've been basically doing some self-discovery, self-exploration, terrain exploration, I suppose, as well. Though I've been in this path before, but all the better, right? All the more merrier that way, all the more joyful, all the more navigating, able to, well, not just outcome something, but result, I mean, so I know it's like a tricky way of talking, not your usual way of being spoken to, but we're just gonna let the voice chakra just do what the voice chakra does. We're gonna try to get out the way and not try to control the tones or any aspect of it. And when I say I won't, I'm gonna do it right after, just to practice. I'm gonna let you just heads up, but also to get rid of that part of myself that might be like an energy inquiry, so I'll go through it and then set it aside and say, boom, now I can step and keep going, so so with that said is, I mean, it might be a good habit to even adopt, I suppose, in some way. Whenever you say you won't do something, make sure that right after you recognize that you do it, and do it willingly, and that way you know that you are not telling yourself no, because apparently you don't like to hear no, so you have to treat yourself like the royalty that you are. So with that being said, figure out how to navigate that part of yourself, because a lot of us, we forgot about ourselves being royal, or having royal bloodlines, or being part of this royal existence, and so with that aspect, I mean, you're able to kind of see how it was used to not just condition you, but use you and navigate you, rather than you yourself being able to navigate, I mean, you'd have to, theoretically think about it yourself, and, revisit the experiences and check how those emotional intelligence inputs might have, contributed to whatever it is that ended up being an outcome, whether or not, if at that, so, okay, I know I get excited, it's like, running away with the train and making sure that I stay on the train. So I have to keep going. So it's like basically mastering my impulse without having to overcome it or conquer it, or demonize myself or hate any part of myself, because it's an impulse, So I call it practicing being ADHD, If there's any way of explaining it, that's usually the term that they would tell people that, if you can't keep yourself calm or bring yourself to like slow down or navigate yourself with what shows pace, self-control, not rushing, not running, not impulsive. Though impulsive is kind of the best way, to maintain the train of thought. So essentially, it's more just of a practice. You got to be able to see and recognize yourself. Most of all, feel confident in yourself. Because when you're a runaway train, what is the main point of it? The main point is that there is no brakes. That wherever I go, I got to make sure that is a path that I'm going to go and run down and pursue whatever it is that I'm going to pursue along the way, So in this case, I have to push myself to express what is usually stress under other conditions. But this is a self-imposed stress of oneself, not only to input my intelligence, input my heart, input my mind, input every aspect of myself, demanding of myself what is basically perfection, what is, in some ways, I guess, been navigated to slowly progress there. But, I mean, and it shows better, too, when you navigate it with, more self-control. But if we can master that part of ourselves, just imagine, being somebody who just spits out facts, and if that fact becomes, entangled with reality, and not just facts, but becomes truth, then all of a sudden, we're speaking our reality, or something of the sort, So, with that being said, I mean, it's essentially self-discovery time, right? I mean, we're not here waiting for anybody to teach us, You are the walking, talking present, So, look inside yourself, find your gifts, and time to put them to use. Wake them up, wake you up. You feel me? So, I mean, this is kind of my own kick in the ass in that direction, But for y'all, it's just an insight, because, the whole point is kind of like bring you along, and treat you like the family that maybe might have not invited you or considered you or had been conditioned to include you into their family, But this is, your long lost brother, your long lost sister, your long lost father, your long lost grandfather, your long lost grandmother, your long lost mother, or even the ones that abandoned you, I mean, it doesn't really matter who, what, when, where, why. The whole point is we've all acknowledged that we were thrown into a pit that we had to climb out of and step on everybody on the way out, because you're the only one who you could save. So essentially, walking out of that into a different point of view, a different perspective, one now that says, well, there's nothing to get out of, you know? So where you thought you needed to get somewhere, you're already there, you know? So being the fact that we already are there, it's about consciously being able to tune ourselves in. What I mean is when you're talking to somebody and you actually have something that you want that person to hear, be said, not necessarily felt, but be heard, you know? And if it isn't heard and the bass gets turned up, the tone becomes all of a sudden what it is that is heard and felt. So for the most part, I attempt to understand that part of myself, you know? And so that's why I adopted this well, I kind of was, you know, a bit in the world at the time. So I said gay, you know, because it's like, hey, I'm here to just cradle you and hold you and care for you and serve you and carry your bidding, you know? So that's what love is, you know, is I'll help you be your hands, be your feet, be your mind, be your mouth, be, you know, able to be at a place where responsibilities are met, obligations are met, you know, priorities are met. So essentially, you know, that's the person, you know, that we all have to become. We have to explore in ourselves and discover ourselves to also having already been. So recognizing, giving ourselves the credit. So thus, we're at like a place where it is that we carry exactly what they told us we should feel. Like as if we didn't do anything or as if nothing happened. So all along, you were just ahead of your time and things were not exactly falling behind, but let's just say better, more catching up, you know? And now that they've encountered and met themselves and know where they stand, how they stand, and in what particular direction now they'd care to, as they say, this stand that we're all having to take, pretty much aim towards or for or in regard to, you know? So, again, awaken, you know? Wake up. Practice waking up. What do you think is to wake up, you know? For one, it's like this. Let me wake up one body part at a time, you know? Let me, let me blink. You know, I'm gonna practice blinking at a pace where, you know, I'll play with it. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. You know, something like that. You know, and that's just tuning in your eyes to, I guess what school taught you essentially to be about something visual. Since you know about numbers, it'll be easy for you to visualize those numbers and hold those numbers in mind. And so you'll work mathematics while practicing something that essentially is tuned into your nervous system. So that way, whatever used to interfere was interfering through our nervous system. You know, at school when you forgot, it was through your nervous system. You know, at school when you felt some kind of way, it was through your nervous system. At school when you were experiencing anything, it was through your nervous system. So now that we know that was the hack, you know, now we can get back to school, real school, and actually accessing these parts of ourselves in different ways with more progress and intention in production, you know, rather than with hopes that they'll forget, trip up, or essentially not notice someone else navigating for them, you know? So basically, we're learning to hack ourselves through all the methods we were taught, all the methods that we carried with our own words being the masks that prevented us from seeing that method in display in action, and most of all within the scope of our management, intentionality, awareness, consciousness, you know, all aspects of what was, you know, basically asked of us to translate on behalf, you know. So that's why we made it to look bad, because we thought we were translating for good, you know? But if we're really translating for good, we wouldn't make things bad, because good didn't make anything bad. Good made everything good, you know? So when you're translating for bad, now bad made things be bad, you know? But bad is good to bad, you know? So essentially, you're still at good, you know? The angels know this. The heavenly bodies know this, you know? The other consciences know this. You know, and whenever you forget that or don't know that, all you have to do is input it into your own experience, into your own moment, into your own mentality or possible prospecting that you do in mind. I guess I'm being tongue-tied right now because I guess I'm giving away too much truth, you know. But essentially, this aspect that is, you know, conducing within us, our nervous system, you know. So, again, it's something that has to be managed, you know. But progressively, what I'm saying is, you know, there's eyes. You know, the one that they like to live in was our nose. That's where they started, you know. So you just got to shift what they did to something else, you know. So they did it with breathing. And then you stop breathing. And then you start thinking. And then you start I don't know what you have to say to who or what or why, but you have some necessity to, bring yourself to remind yourself that you love yourself, But if you don't remember that in that moment, what do? You suck, feet. You tripped me. Hands, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You tripped me. Well, life is a trip, right? So, hey, ain't that a trip? So essentially that's life, So with that being said, since they already, showed you what to do, they taught you how to do it, and you practice with your nose, now you can practice with your eyes, and move whatever happened here to here, and from there, they also practice something with your mouth, with your ears, they practice putting words in your mouth, so you practice putting words in your mouth, what you do is, like I told you, record yourself. Brian, you're doing a great job today. I love the way you're presenting this. I love the way you're first person, second person, third person, no person, any person, every person, and so personally and personal out of it all, So essentially, your mouth the whole time is what you've been doing, right? Look, even in that, I had to manage myself, my 10-second tom, but my second tom did just fine, So in that, that's my mouth. Now my ears, what am I hearing? Myself, right? So that means now I have to focus on what the mouth actually says, and not just, that's a distraction. What the mouth is saying is a distraction. It's actually the tone that carries the power. So if you have magic in your voice and the tone is what will access it, then again, you have magic in your voice, So utilize this magic. Speak to yourself, brainwash yourself. Rather than being brainwashed all day and forcing yourself to hear these narratives, because now I don't even listen to music, And before it was just all day euphoria, music, feeling good, hearing good, thinking good, dancing, feeling like, oh man, the motion is groovy, everything's awesome, Now I don't even do that. Why? Because I'm obsessed with them. I'm obsessed with myself. I'm obsessed with this magical experience, So now even the love of music is pushed away. And I write music, I produce music, I make music, So with that being said, here I am, knowing that I could just make it all music for myself and have an easy life. But I decided to dive in. I decided to first person this, I decided to bypass your opinions, your guidance, and I'll just put myself through it. And that way, when I talk to you, I don't even have to bother with you becoming a problem to yourself or for me or for the matter or for anybody else's understanding. I'll just do you, my lane was always being dragged through every other lane, and I wondered why. Why do I feel like I'm a master of all trades, being dragged through all these lanes, and so in that perspective, it was more of a starter point that you guys managed because you guys presented it more like a jack of all trades, and that just, leaves you internally thinking, managing something inside of me. Well, no thank you. I'd rather be there complete than not there complete thinking I'm incomplete. So with that being said, that's that perspective of the self, So now I'm here. Now the next becomes my body's rhythm and alignment factors, So now that I know my eyes, now that I know my mind, now that I know my pineal gland in this visualization, now that I know my mouth, now that I know my nose's senses, now that I know my ears, hearing perception, now that I know my mouth can go into my ears and my ears can reach for my mouth, And so now I have a magic power of being able to move magic from one end to the other, and I know it. And now I'm telling you, you should know it too, So that magic string, that invisible string, that's my magic. It goes from my mouth to my ear and from my ear to my mouth. So the way I discovered that invisible string was because I had to look for nasty, right? And I thought, what is nasty anyways? Why would humans have to have the word nasty? What is nasty? And then you think about it. My mouth leads to my throat. My throat leads to my stomach. My stomach leads to my intestinal tract. And my intestinal tract, leads back outside, So if that's the invisible line of something that goes in and comes out, again, that's one invisible line. My next invisible line was, internally. So I have another invisible line. the things that I'll put in my mouth, that I'll consume, or that I'll, use to quench my thirst, or feed myself chemicals or chemistry, or interrupt my own chemicals or chemistry, or simply manage it, So, but either way, I have to take all those three positions, or else I leave a place for somebody. So I'm the one doing all that for me. So with that being said, so that's one invisible line. Now we're carrying on to alignment, right? And alignment, what invisible lines were misaligning us? Was it the invisible line from our mouth to our ear? Was it every time we pulled it, we felt this twitch in our neck? This weight on our shoulder? So from that invisible line, you go to the next one. Every time you mess with that invisible line, what chemistry are you accessing, or are you varying within your own body? It's a highway, an invisible highway from your mouth all the way down to your rectum. And that invisible highway feeds you, maintains you, keeps certain things within the boundary of the chemistry you're playing with, So it's all about what you're essentially trying to do within yourself, If you're a runner, you probably eat light meals, drink a lot more. If you watch TV all day, then you go to McDonald's, Taco Bell all day. Eat burritos. You don't mind having a heavy stomach because you're not going to carry that fat ass stomach all the way down the block, but the runner is. And so he would like to optimize his ability to be able to, and his mental mind frame, and essentially by managing what we put into our body. You're going to tell me that the fat man is going to run differently than the skinny man? I don't get it, So that's an area for yourself to go look to be a student and school yourself, because if it interests you, then clearly, hey, pick it up and run with it, And now for the next version of this, it goes, what could it go for? I guess being present again, because that entire time I'm not necessarily present. I'm being impulsive again, and feeding you guys high output of energy, when I should be more like a meditation constantly. Like here you are meditating with me. We're in nature, we're like a blade in reality, just swinging in nature, We're like a pendulum just moving, from one side to the next, We're like, whatever it is that we need to be, we already are it, So it's just being in that tranquility. Whatever I need to be, I already am that and more, So here I am. Can you guys feel my peace? My body's rhythm? Is it hacking your rhythm, causing you to be calm and relaxed too? And sometimes you got to get ready for them, because at any moment it goes like you're relaxed. And then all of a sudden I was trying to tell you something, and then next thing you know, well, I was trying to simulate something, but I guess I'm too relaxed, And then it becomes now, is it my acts that are being attacked? Because you don't seem to want to leave my side. You want to exist anywhere that I can make room for you, So right about now, I could be a good actor. I could be not just tuned in body-wise, physically, but reactively or impressively or, tone-wise, like all these factors of character or of acting, performing, But right now, it's just this, rhythm. It starts with rhythm. If you can maintain rhythm, then you achieve any of those goals, But it starts with rhythm. So maintaining calmness, maintaining your body's rhythm, motion is nothing to think is wrong. Motion is actually good, It tells you what it needs to tell you in its own language, So, and then not only that, but it also maintains this psychic connection with your mind and your body. So the more you keep your body in motion, the more you're feeding your psychic connection, which they call your nervous system, but it's psychic, So your psychic connection by maintaining movement, maintaining strong nervous system connections, or I'd like to put it, psychic connections with your own body. Because right now I'm just sitting in your conscience. My body has its own rhythm. I'm letting that rhythm be expressed outwardly rather than keeping it inside, I could tune it into my heartbeat, I could let it do all kinds of things, I could just, try to control it and bring myself into the same frenzy that I just walked out of, or let it do what it does and show me its masterfulness, So that way it doesn't have to suffer the same life that I suffered, You're doing it wrong. You could do it better. No, not like that. Oh, no, don't read my tone. No, just hear what I'm saying. No. You know, so back to the rhythm. You know, the body has its rhythm, the mind has, you know, a rhythm. Right now it's just keeping it clear, keeping clarity there, you know, maintaining it clear, you know, in your mouth chakra, you know, so make sure you can measure from your mind to your throat, your chakra, that the invisible line, you know, make sure there's nothing there interrupting you or bothering you, you know, feel that your mind can feel the vibrations in your throat that are producing the sound, you know, because that's your mind feeling, you know. I mean, still translating, of course, is the brain, but still, you know, yeah, like I said, it's imagination. There's no limits to this. That's the whole point, you know. You trying to be your so-called professional self and put it in a box. For who? You know? And where is that box? Where is all that stuff at anyways? Because I don't see it right here. I mean, it's fighting me. It's being brought to my attention. But where is the box? So you see? Where is all your DNA's information? Where is all the society's secret data, you know, confidential information, you know, where is all that information? Ask yourself that. Why are you being blocked from accessing your full capacity of your existence? You know? So you recognize what are the real vaults, why you're so protected, why it's okay to feel safe even though you know what you know. You feel me? Well, that was an awesome meditation. I really did feel very relaxed there. I even opened my eyes and everything seemed so much more like, how do you guys call it? 4D or no, 40K or 400K or something like that, 4,000K. I mean, very high picture definition, would you say? You know? Like, I don't know, the greens look very green, the brown looks very brown. Even the clay rocks, you know, or the clay colored rocks look like very clay-like, you know? Like everything right now looks so well defined, you know? Every detail stands out. You know, it's almost like if I ever had like any kind of filter there, like when it's not there, reality looks different. Really different. And you know, I did notice that every time I used to like close my eyes or synchronize my hemispheres in my brain, you know, or pray or get into any sacred mode or sacred experience, recognizing, you know, basically, you know, the heavenly bodies, you know, how we're one heavenly body inside another heavenly body within more heavenly bodies and so on and so forth, you know, how it's just an ever falling, you know, pit of who knows how much information and to what degree, you know, but it goes on and on like the rabbit hole that they talk about, you know. But hey, so thanks again for you guys' time. Hopefully this was insightful and able to help you guys better be yourselves, awaken yourselves, access yourselves, test yourselves, be yourselves, love yourselves, support yourselves, and honestly unafraid to actually show who you are, being truthfully when you're feeling true to yourself, you know, rather than always turning to the mask, you know, because I need this person to see this mask rather than who, what, when, where, or why. I mean, again, I don't know. I'm not the one putting these words in my mouth, you know, so hopefully you guys know what you guys are doing. Hopefully all this has everything in place just the way, you know, we've all worked diligently and very dedicatedly to make sure that we remind ourselves, you know. I mean, if you're here and you're here to be awesome, and if essentially you're going to be awesome and you've been awesome the whole time and all you've been doing is trying to change that so that you didn't feel so cool, well, now you see why you've always been so cool, you know, because you are cool. You're awesome. So remember that. Thank you for your time. Also, have a good day. Oh, man.